Welcome everybody, my name is François Letarte and this is my channel JDR D30, a channel about tabletop role-playing games. So today I will make a flip through, an impression of the Cortex role-playing game. Cortex role-playing game is a role-playing game written by Jamie Chambers, and well, my version was published by Margaret Wise Production, though the game is still available under another publisher's name, which I don't recall right now, but in the links below you will find a link to get you this game. And that game is worth your time. Today it will be more a flip through, an impression of the game, more than a review. In fact, I've played this game a couple of months back. It was through a one-shot. I wanted to try this game, and a couple of years back, I tried the game system a little with Serenity, the role-playing game, which is quite a fine game. When I played this, I didn't really grab how the system was working, the nuts and bolts of it. Though I found the system quite interesting, I didn't have, great effect with Serenity. But this time, when I had to make the one-shot with this version of the game, I really took the time to watch how it was working and, to trying to find out the right way to do it. And I felt that I did good game sessions with that. Since I have played that a couple of months back, and I haven't really rewatched the book before, filming this actual video. It will be more flipping through and recalling good memories, because I have good memories of playing this. I really like this game system. Yeah, I know that there's a newer version of Cortex. I think it's Cortex Plus. I don't really know about Cortex Plus, but this one works really fine. I really love the game system. It's a generic, if you want to know. This is a generic game system which you can play any setting that you like. I've tried it with Serenity. It was science fiction, from the series. When I've tried it, the last time, it was through a fantasy. It was to a fantasy setting, and it worked pretty well. So let's begin to flip through that. The game is very well written, very well organized. Mr. Chambers has a way to write the stuff, and it was very pleasant to read. Basically, you need, the dice that you need in there are the D4, D6, D8, D10, and D12. This is the only dice that you need. So your character is defined by attributes, which are basically the same attributes as in Dungeons and Dragons with just other names. Agility, strength, vitality, alertness, intelligence, willpower. Mostly, This is the 6 basic attributes, and you assign dices to those attributes. It may look like a little like Savage Worlds, though it's a little different, So you put dice into your attributes. Some derived attributes are coming from that, and then you pick up some skills, and the skills are also dice that you will assign to them. There's a cost depending on how good you want to be with the skill. You have the general skills, which I think there are. There's a maximum. Those the general skills. I think it's D8. You can get them as high as D8. You just want to check out. No, as high as D6. And if you want to go beyond, be better at this, at some general skills, in fact you can't. You have to choose a specialty, so a branch of that general skill that you may progress beyond the D6. So it's very clever, in fact, to do that. It makes very specialized character. Everyone has their own little tricks through the skills. When you create characters, you have to choose assets and complications, which are expressed in dice most of the time. So it may add up something or remove something depending on the situation. It may be a dice that will be added to the difficulty if it's a complication, or an asset that will give you some advantage or give you an extra dice on something. Okay, and you have plot points into that game. You know, a currency that will help you in many ways, gaining you an additional dice to roll may be useful for that, or even change the plot at some point to some degrees, depending on the number of plot points that you will expand. I don't know if I will be able to say everything about the plot points, but I've said probably most of the things you need to know about character creation. Okay, just ripping through the book. Well, there's not much illustrations into that book. Okay, this is a very straight book. If you want to know, some illustrations are in there, but once in a while. There's, you know, the assets and complications. There's a quite comprehensive table, summing up how it works, how they cost. Okay, so it's very useful, very handy. Okay, so you have the skills. The skills, by the way, are, you know, the basic general skills. You know, they are very broad, but they kind of cover everything you need to go to adventure. So when I've played that, I've never felt that I was into a hole of, okay, what do I roll? You know, there was always a skill that I could think of. Okay, that was working fine. Right. Oh yeah, there's a good chapter on gear, how it works, the effects it has, all the damage of the weapons, you know, the classic stuff. But for me, there's lots of stuff for modern times and science fiction into that. But I was able, nevertheless, to have enough stuff to get a fantasy adventure running, and with enough informations to make this work. Okay. The rules themselves, well, when you need to have to roll for something, this is some sort of a dice pool game. Something that I find very cool about this game system is that you decide on what attribute you will use, and you decide what is the skill related to what you're doing. Most of the time they are obvious. But, unlike many role-playing games where skills may be tied to a specific attribute, this is not the case here. Okay, you can have a skill, but you decide upon the attribute that will be used. Okay, you want to shoot. Okay, you can use your weapon skill, your pistol skill, and you use your agility. Okay, and you have to beat the difficulty. But if you want to, let's say, repair your gun, you can use your pistol skill plus your intelligence. Okay, so your pistol skill is not just about shooting it, but it can be all things related to a gun. Okay, so you see where I'm coming at. So you can decide upon the attributes you want to use and what skill you want to use in order to have the right fit for the situation. If there's an asset that can be used into that, let's say there's an asset about being a sharp shooter, you can add that to this. There's a complication coming to that, you're attacking a type of monster that you have a phobia about it. Okay, so this can be a dice that can be added to the difficulty to hit the monster. Okay, so there's something very dynamic about what you're using on your sheet in order to have a roll, and it add a huge effect around the table. I remember when I was playing with the guys, every time they were to roll the dice, there was this effect, can I succeed this? And not being sure, do I spend plot points on this one? Okay, and was very fun, in fact. Just to give you an idea of the difficulty range, an average action, okay, most of the action that needs some effort, let's say, you need to have a 7 on well, basically 2 dice if you can have them, you know, the attributes and the general skill, unless you don't have any points into the general skill needed, where you will only roll, you know, your attribute. But let's say you have the general skill, well, on 2 dice. Let's say you are average, an average Joe into both attributes and skill. Well, you have a D6 in both of them, so with 2d6 you have to beat a 7 or more, which is basically 50% chance. Yeah, so it's, you have to be, when I was playing the game, you know, I was trying not to get too much high difficulty, you know. I tried to get into the lower range, maybe easy, average, or hard, maybe not formidable difficulty, which was 15. Just having a hard difficulty, even though you were using attribute, a skill, 2 assets, and plot points, you could fail. So that this is stressful and this is fun. This is fun because the dice can completely change what is going on, even though you think you have it. Or you can have an extraordinary success. In order to achieve an extraordinary success, which is some kind of a critical hit, let's say, you have to beat 10 more the basic difficulty, which, let's say, our average difficulty was 7. Well, if you are able to get 14 or more, well, you gain an extraordinary success, and you have, you know, some advantages coming with the result of what you were trying to do. I really love that system, okay? I will just get to the rules. So yeah, there's lots of good advice on how to put complications into play. Like I said, for example, it may be some dices added to the difficulty, but it can be some other situation that just make the story better. In fact, you know, complications makes the life of the character more hard, and that's what we love. We want to be into some trouble and to create a good story about this. Okay, yeah, I wanted to talk to you about the plot points system. Okay. You can improve actions, like I said, so adding some dice. You can save your life, stay alive too. You can some assets need some plot points to be activated, so it's described in the different assets. And you can manipulate the story. That's where I'm coming at with the plot point and story impact. Well, if you spend only 1 or 2 plot points into a scene, well, it will be inconsequential, okay? The example here, I can read it, is this. This is the bar that serves that particular kind of elven wine you always liked. So for some reasons, the character really wants to have that elven wine and decides, well, this is the place that they have it, and may spend plot points, okay? So plot points is give some power to the players. And as you are giving more and more points, well, you have more and more impact. If you are spending 11 plot points on a scene, you completely decide upon what the scene is, okay? Okay, it's defining. Did I say wizard? I meant incredibly powerful and helpful dragon. Okay, this is the example they are giving for the defining result. Okay, combat in here is very interesting. How this is managed. The action, you can make multiple action, though it's not very useful to do that because you have some sort of difficulty. I really like the way defense is working into that. Okay, there's the innate defense, which is the normal defense, basic defense. You can block or dodge as an active reaction, something that you decide upon, but it will count as an action. Okay, so it may take your toll. You'll always have your innate defense if needs be. When it comes to combat, okay, damage is very interesting. Okay, you have a life point track, in fact, which is your hit points. Okay, and the track goes in two ways. You know, two opposing ways. Okay, you have the wounds that depletes your number of points, and you have the stun points. I don't know. Do I say? Is it the right terms? You have the wounds, yeah, and you have the stun. Okay, you have the wounds that depletes the number of points, and you have the stun points that are accumulating. Okay, so you have two tracks of damage, and you know the way it's set up on the sheet. You know, you have your wound points going this way, you have your stun points going this way. Well, at the start of the adventure, you already blacken all the points you won't need. You just leave blank the ones that is the number of your actual life points. That is what it's called. And at some point, you know, you have your wounds going up, your stuns going down, and when they reach each other, well, you can be knocked down, you can fall unconscious, and there are consequences if you fill up your stun points to the fullest. There are consequences if you are filling up your wounds to the fullest. In fact, I think you'll begin to die, something like that. Like I said, I'm just remembering the thing, but I remember that it was a very clever way to make damage. One of my favorite damage system, in fact, of all time. I think it's my second favorite wound system of every role playing I have ever played. Really like this one. My favorite is Ubiquity, by the way, but this one comes very close. I really like the way they handle damage. Sorry, I'm misspelling the words in my mouth. Okay, so the effect of damage. You know, there's many effects, but it's very easy to handle, in fact. And recovering damage, I really like the way recovery is made. Okay, it's not magical like your sleep overnight and you have all your hit points, or after a combat you regain half of your hit point. You know, I'm not into that at all. I really like the way it's more realistic, but it can be very cinematic. Okay, well, it makes believable action movie with that. And yeah, there's the magic part. Some examples. Yeah, well, it's more like a toolbox. You don't have a full magic system into that. You have to think about the spells that you want to create, though there are many examples. So it can be, in my opinion, easy to handle. And by the way, you know, yeah, I'm just thinking about that. That game system first saw the light into a role-playing game that I used to own that was called Sovereign Stone. This was the first incarnation of Cortex. So, well, you may find those games. Usually they're easy to find into used bookstore, by the way. And they have a full, you know, set of spells into that, which can be very useful if you want to run a real fantasy game. Well, you can have those games, you know, the Sovereign Stone series, which will have all you need into that. Yeah, some stuff about superpowers and all that. There are some suggestions. Well, some campaigns. Well, some setting examples by the end. Okay, just to set up a science fiction one, a more horror one, and a kind of fantasy one. Frankly, if I had a little more time on my hand doing role-playing games, I would consider having this game system to run something, to try it out with something else. I really like this game system. It's really worth your time, and I think on Drive-Through, I don't remember exactly, but I think that it's not very expensive. Yes, there's the Cortex Plus, but the classic one, this version, is very neat. I'm very happy to have to have bought this one, and it will come back at some point into my gaming life. I'm sure of that. Really enjoyed to play that. I really love how flexible it was, and you know, to have the players choosing, okay, I will use this asset and all that, and just by, you know, making their choice, they were kind of telling the story of why they would roll that, what kind of action they are doing, you know, really make the thing more real in a sense, okay? So you want to have a good toolbox, a generic system that is quite different from what we are used to have, with a clever life point health tracking and a very flexible dice system. Well, Cortex, I feel that you won't be disappointed. The game may not be perfect, but it makes good gaming. So that's what I had to say today about my impression and flip-through of Cortex, the role-playing game. So, any questions, comments? Well, feel free to leave them. Just check out the links below to get yourself a copy of this game. And yeah, that's what I had to say. So, my name is François Letarte for JDR D30, and up to next time, I hope you have as much fun in your life as in your games. Goodbye.